Thanksgiving. They fed me in the laundry room. She's used to scraps, my sister smirked. Then a limo stopped outside. A woman got out. I'm looking for the owner of this house. Everyone went dead silent. I spent the entire evening making the pumpkin pie my cousin Julia complimented last holiday season. Deep down, I knew the invitation, just like every year, was more of a courtesy than a genuine gesture. I was always the last name on the list, but Josh and Lily were so excited that I couldn't say no. We arrived at my sister Rebecca's house right on time. Her suburban mansion in North Salem was decked out with twinkling lights on the iron fence and wreaths in every window. Josh clutched my hand tightly, and Lily held the pie box as if it were a priceless treasure. Rebecca opened the door, her smile polite and calculated. She wore a wine-colored velvet dress, her hair perfectly curled, stepping out like she was about to walk onto a stage. "Oh, Caroline, you came." I leaned in for a quick hug, but she didn't return it. Her eyes scanned the pie box. "I told you not to bring anything this year. Pumpkin pie? Let's hope it's not too sweet." Then she turned and walked back inside without waiting for a reply. Inside, laughter filled the air, mixed with the scent of turkey and cinnamon. Everyone was dressed beautifully, chatting and laughing around a long magazine-wily dinner table. We stood near the door lost among familiar strangers. No one offered us a seat. No one greeted us. They talked as if the three of us were just shadows in the corner. I kept smiling. I set the pie on the kitchen counter while Josh helped Lily take off her coat. She looked up at me and whispered, "Mommy, why isn't anyone saying hi to us?" I knelt to tie her shoelace and whispered back, "They're just busy, sweetheart." Rebecca returned, glancing at her phone. "I just checked the seating chart. It's a bit tight. Caroline, you don't mind sitting in the side room, do you? There's a small table in the laundry room. It's been cleaned." I thought I'd misheard. The laundry room? Yes, it's clean and quiet. The kids will be more comfortable there. She winked. "You know, better than having them squeeze in with all the adults." Josh held my hand. Lily lowered her gaze. I smiled faintly, picked up the pie, and followed Rebecca's direction. The side room, past the back door, was literally a laundry room. Washer still humming. A small wooden table was pushed against the wall with two folding chairs and a tiny plastic kids' chair. No tablecloth, no warm lighting, just a buzzing fluorescent bulb overhead. I set the food down and took a deep breath. Josh sat silently. Lily climbed onto the plastic chair, her tiny hand resting on her knee. No one spoke. I opened the pie box and served 3 small slices, knowing no one else would touch them. Laughter from the living room pierced through my composure like needles. My throat tightened when Lily asked, "Why doesn't Aunt Rebecca want us to sit with everyone?" I smiled again, the same smile I'd trained myself to wear for years. "It's not that they don't want us there, they just don't understand, honey." Josh stared at me. "Maybe next year we shouldn't come, Mom." I didn't answer right away. I looked at my kids, one still trying to understand why we were left out, the other pretending not to understand anymore. And at that moment, under the cold white light and the of the washing machine, I knew. Today wasn't a holiday. Today was a lesson, and I had learned it. I sat upright, poured water into 3 plastic cups like we were in a fine restaurant. "Happy Thanksgiving, babies. Wherever we are, as long as we're together, that's enough." Lily smiled. Josh raised his cup, his eyes no longer sad, and I thought to myself, one day I'll show them, not with anger, but with my worth. I was about to throw away the leftover pie when we heard tires screech outside the tiny window above the washer. All 3 of us looked up. Josh raised his eyebrows. Lily sat up straighter. Headlights swept across the wall and stopped right at the back door. A long, sleek black car pulled up quietly on the gravel path leading to the backyard. Not an SUV, not a neighbor's car, a limousine. Josh leaned toward the window, wide-eyed. "Mom, that car." I stepped beside him, peering through the frosted glass. A man in a black suit wearing a hat and white gloves opened the back door. Then a woman stepped out, poised, composed, her heels clicking softly but decisively on the gravel. She wore a slate blue wool coat with a high collar over a knee-length sweater dress. Her silver hair was neatly pinned up. Her face showed signs of life lived fully, but no bitterness. She looked around calmly. Then her eyes landed exactly where we were standing, at the back door. Lily whispered, "Mommy, she's looking at us." I swallowed hard and cracked the door open. A rush of cold air swept in, carrying a hint of snow and jasmine from her scarf. "Hello?" she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear and confident. "I'm looking for Caroline Brooks." I froze. "Yes, I'm Caroline." She smiled slowly. "Good. I'm Evelyn Rhodes, Executive Director of Voices Rising, a foundation supporting single mothers and women who've been pushed to the margins." She stepped forward. "I'm here because of a story, a post you wrote last year on a community forum about rebuilding your life after living in a shelter." My heart skipped a beat. That post, I typed it on my phone one late night after work while Josh had a fever and Lily was asleep on the couch. I didn't write it for attention, just to let something out. I never thought anyone would read it. Evelyn continued. Your post spread through our network. We've been searching for you for 6 months. When your name appeared on an old volunteer registry, I decided to come myself. She glanced around at the laundry room setting. I didn't expect to find you here. I blushed. I didn't expect to be found in a laundry room. Josh gently squeezed my hand. Lily still clutched her dress. Evelyn smiled. I'm here to invite you to be a featured speaker for Voices Rising's upcoming Inspiration Series. We'd like you to be our keynote speaker at the spring conference to share your story from the beginning. No filters, no embellishment. You'll be compensated fairly. We also want to publish your story as a book with full editorial control in your hands. I stood frozen, unsure what to say. Part of me didn't believe it. Another part felt relieved. Are you sure? I heard myself ask. I'm just a mom trying to survive. She looked at me like I'd said something silly. That's exactly why we need you, she replied. We don't need perfect success stories. We need people like you. Real, brave, and still moving forward. Josh looked up at me. You'll do it, right? I looked at him, then at Lily, then back at Evelyn. Yes, I said. I will. Evelyn nodded. The car is waiting. If you're ready, we can talk more over dinner. I glanced back at the folding table and the half-eaten pie. Let me grab my coat. No need, she smiled. We'll take care of you from here. I held my children's hands as we stepped out of that suffocating room. The cold wind bit at my cheeks, but my heart felt strangely warm, and when the car door shut behind us, I knew. The world had just shifted, not because I fought for a place, but because, finally, my worth had been seen. On the way to the restaurant Evelyn had reserved, I was still in disbelief. Josh sat beside me, clutching the pumpkin pie like it was treasure, while Lily leaned against me, her wide eyes fixed on the softly lit ceiling above. Outside the window, Rebecca's neighborhood faded behind us like a memory being quietly erased. Evelyn smiled at us through the small divider window between us and the driver. I know this might all feel sudden, but I've wanted to meet you for a long time, Caroline. I turned toward her. You said you found me because of a post? Not just one, Evelyn nodded, her voice low and warm. A whole series of short posts you shared over about 6 months after leaving your ex-husband. You wrote about your night shifts at the restaurant, about having only $3 left for gas, about turning a packet of instant noodles into a living room party with your kids. I read every word and I cried. My cheeks flushed, not from shame but from overwhelm. I had written those words in silence, late at night when the world slept and I sat on a wooden kitchen chair trying not to wake the kids. I never thought anyone would read them, let alone someone like Evelyn Rhodes. I still remember one line, she continued. I don't want my kids to think they have to toughen up to survive. I want them to know they deserve to live, to breathe, and to dream. Evelyn looked at me for a long time. I've never read anything so honest. I clenched my hands gently, trying to steady my voice. I just wrote so I wouldn't fall apart, and that's what made it powerful, she said. Voices Rising is hosting our spring summit soon, bringing together activists, writers, educators, and single mothers from across the country. We need someone to open it, not with credentials, but with heart and live truth. I want that person to be you. I looked at Josh and Lily. Josh sat still, staring out the window, but his hand rested lightly on his sister's shoulder. Lily remained tucked close to me, nodding softly as if sensing a shift in our lives. But I've never spoken in front of a crowd, I said quietly. I'm not a polished speaker. Evelyn placed a hand on her chest. Caroline, what moves people isn't Polish, it's truth, and your truth is what they need to hear. I stayed quiet the rest of the ride. When the car pulled up, the driver opened the door and I stepped out with my children. The restaurant sat tucked into a quiet corner of the city, understated, refined, with warm yellow lights and the smell of fresh bread in the air. We were led to a private room. On the table was a customized menu for the evening and a thin folder placed in front of me. Evelyn gestured toward it. A preliminary contract. If you agree, we'll cover everything: travel, lodging, childcare, whatever helps you focus on telling your story. I opened the folder and skimmed the neatly typed respectful text. My name was printed boldly at the top. Caroline Brooks, keynote speaker, Voices Rising, Spring Summit 2026. I exhaled a long, choked breath of relief and disbelief. I used to think the years I spent struggling through life left nothing behind but exhaustion. But it turns out, the late nights writing blog posts on my old phone, the short journal entries I thought were forgotten, had become the bridge leading me into the light. Evelyn raised her glass of water and looked at me like she saw a version of me I hadn't dared to believe in. I believe in you, Caroline. And I think it's time you believe in yourself too. I never imagined a night that began in a laundry room could end in an elegant restaurant beside a woman who had read every word I'd written in my weakest moments. Evelyn didn't just speak kindly. She treated me as someone who mattered, not someone who was barely included. When she pushed the contract toward me, I hesitated. The bolded words on the first page made me pause. Caroline Brooks, author and keynote speaker, Voices Rising, 2026. I read it again, slower this time, afraid it would disappear if I blinked. Is this real? I whispered. Evelyn nodded, still smiling patiently. Very real, Caroline. You're not imagining it. She went over the terms. Her organization would cover everything for me and the kids throughout the conference: airfare, hotel, meals, and on-site childcare. A team of professional editors would help shape my speech and manuscript. They didn't want to change my voice, she emphasized. They just wanted to help me tell the story in its fullest form. I looked down and realized I had been gripping the cloth napkin. Josh gently reached over, took the pumpkin pie box from my hands, and set it aside, as if helping me release the last burden of that night. Lily rested her head on my shoulder, her wide eyes quietly absorbing every detail. She spoke just one sentence. Mom, they chose you because you're you. I turned and smiled at her, tears stinging my eyes. For the first time in my life, I wasn't Rebecca's sister or Mrs. Brooks' daughter or the divorced woman with 2 kids. I was simply myself, Caroline, the one who wrote with her whole heart, not knowing if anyone would ever read it, but writing because she could not. Evelyn lifted her cup of tea, the golden light catching on the emerald ring on her hand. I once told my team, she began, if you want someone who can shift the mood of a whole room with their real story, find Caroline Brooks. I laughed, a little embarrassed. I used to write for 20 readers. Half of them were single moms I met at the community center. And now, Evelyn said, you'll write for thousands, and I believe they need you more than ever. When dinner ended, I signed the contract. My hand trembled, not from fear, but because I knew this was a turning point. Not the cinematic kind with fireworks and fanfare, but a quiet internal click, like the final gear slipping into place. On the way back, the limousine glided past streets I once knew, but they looked different now. The houses didn't sting anymore. The little diners I once cleaned felt like part of the mosaic of my journey. Josh whispered, Mom, you kind of look like a celebrity. I shook my head and squeezed his hand. Not a celebrity, honey. Just respected. I turned to Evelyn and thanked her again. She smiled, looking at me not with pity, but with recognition. Caroline, they didn't give you a seat at the table, but tonight, you were handed a stage. I nodded, feeling light in a way I hadn't for years. And I knew, from now on, I wouldn't be knocking on doors for a place. I'd be building my own. Just as I closed the limousine door, I caught a glimpse of my mother through the dining room curtain. She stood frozen, wineglass in hand, her face caught between shock and confusion. Beside her, Rebecca gripped her wine stem, lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Blake leaned against the fireplace, phone in hand, eyes following the car pulling away from their gate. I once dreamed of leaving that house with my head held high, but never did I imagine I'd be leaving in a limousine, with my children by my side, and a powerful woman ready to bring my story to thousands. Josh sat across from me, eyes sparkling with excitement. Lily leaned into me, her small hand resting on mine, to be sure I was still here, and that this was real. Did you see them watching? Josh whispered. I nodded. I saw. I think Aunt Rebecca thought she was the most important person in the family, Lily said, her voice sweet and clear. But today, she wasn't. I smiled, brushing her hair. Today they watched, and I was heard. Evelyn turned, her voice soft but firm. I've seen many moments like this, when someone is finally seen for who they truly are. But this one, Caroline, I will remember most. I didn't respond right away. The emotion was steady now, not sharp like before, not pain, just healing, not revenge, just living acknowledged and moving forward. The car turned into the city center where holiday lights sparkled on every block, and I suddenly remembered past Thanksgivings. Waiting in line at church for a frozen turkey, splitting the last potato so Josh and Lily could have enough. Those years weren't wasted. They built the foundation for this moment. Evelyn reached into her leather briefcase and placed a small folder on my lap. There's one more thing. We've spoken with a publisher in Boston. They read the draft manuscript our editors assembled from your blog. They're very interested, and they want you to develop it into a full memoir, not just in print. They want an audiobook, read by you. My eyes widened. Me? I'd read it? Your own voice, Evelyn smiled. Because it carries something no one else can replicate. Truth. I felt like a door had just opened inside me. Not just a speaker, not just a writer, a storyteller in my own voice. So where do we start? Next week, she said. We've got a studio in New York. It's ready, don't worry. We'll provide accommodations for all 3 of you. Josh and Lily can explore the city, and if you're open to it, we can pair with a local TV station to share your story. I laughed aloud. This is really happening, isn't it? This isn't a dream? Josh raised his eyebrows. If it is, I don't want to wake up. Lily nodded hard, her curls bouncing. Mom, don't ever go back to that house again. I looked at her, then out the window, watching the golden lights blur past. No, I won't go back, because from now on, I'll build my own home. The limousine pulled up to a small hotel already arranged for us. The driver opened the door. Evelyn waved goodbye, reminding me of the press event the next morning. I held my children's hands and stepped into the hotel lobby, still not quite believing I had left that old garage less than 3 hours ago. And somewhere deep in my heart I knew this journey was just beginning. But this time, I'd walk it on my own feet. No more bowing, no more asking for permission. The morning of the first conference came faster than I expected. I stood backstage holding my speech, carefully marked with yellow sticky notes Lily had helped me place. Josh was in the front row. The shirt he'd chosen made him look older than 12. Lily sat beside him, tightly gripping the conference program like it was treasure. When the MC called my name, a rush of electricity ran down my spine. I walked onto the stage under soft white lights. The room fell silent. Hundreds of women from all over, some in tailored suits, some in simple clothes, watched me with open, hopeful eyes. I began with where it all started, the laundry room at my sister's house on a cold Thanksgiving. I told them about the years in a 2-bedroom apartment, working 2 shifts a day and blogging at midnight to hold myself together. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I spoke about the shame of food lines, about feeling invisible in my own family, and most importantly, I spoke about the moment I stepped into that limousine with my kids, knowing I had just left the past behind and stepped into the life I chose. When I finished, the room stayed silent for a beat, then came one clap, then another, then the whole room erupted in applause so loud I almost cried. One woman stood, then another, and then the entire room stood. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't a dream. After my speech, I spent 2 hours meeting attendees. They came to me with shining eyes, holding my hands, telling me their stories. One had lived in her car with 2 toddlers. Another had just left a suffocating marriage. A retired teacher told me she'd felt invisible in her family until she heard me speak. I don't need permission to exist anymore, one woman told me. Thank you for saying what I've always felt. That sentence stayed with me all day. A month later, More Than Enough officially launched. The cover showed a black and white photo of me and my kids, hand in hand, crossing a busy street, symbolizing how we'd walked through the noise and found our way back to each other. I cried holding the first copy, not because I had a book, but because, for the first time, my name was printed clearly, not under someone else's, not as someone's sister or someone's daughter. The messages started pouring in. Emails, comments, handwritten letters, people shared photos of their favorite passages or told me they read the book all night and felt held. One of the messages that moved me so deeply I had to sit in silence for a while read, I used to think my worth only existed if others saw it, but you helped me realize. Real worth is in how we keep rising every time we're pushed aside. I don't know if I can change the whole world, but I know this. I've touched someone's world, and that's enough. That evening, while I was washing dishes in the kitchen of our new apartment in Manhattan, Lily hugged me from behind and whispered, "Mom, do you know how many people called you inspiring today?" I laughed, turning to look at her. I'm just someone who learned not to ask for permission to be herself. Josh looked up from the couch. You didn't just learn it. You taught us. I stopped what I was doing, dried my hands, and sat down between my 2 kids. I used to think I was just the leftover pieces other people didn't want, but now I know. I've always been more than that. A year after that fateful night in Rebecca's garage, Thanksgiving came around again. But this time, I wasn't waiting outside a door hoping to be let in. I wasn't holding a paper plate, sitting quietly in some cold, forgotten room. This year, Thanksgiving was held right in my small apartment in Brooklyn. It wasn't fancy, no crystal chandeliers or 12-seat table like my sister's. But my kitchen was warm, the pumpkin pie smelled amazing, and most importantly, everyone there wanted to be there. I woke up early to roast the turkey while Josh was in charge of the mashed potatoes, and Lily busied herself writing handmade thank you cards for each guest. She designed every card herself, decorated them with little leaf stickers, and wrote in sparkly ink, "Thank you for being the real family to me and my mom." There were just 8 of us at the table. The 3 of us, Evelyn, 2 friends I met at last year's conference, Dina and Carla, and our elderly neighbors from across the hall, Walter and Ruby, who once lent me a pan when I first moved in. None of them were blood relatives, but each had shown up with the kind of kindness I'd longed for my whole life. Evelyn arrived early, bringing homemade pumpkin soup. She entered the way she always did, confident, calm, and with a quiet grace that made everyone feel valued without needing to say a word. This is the first year I didn't attend the office party, she said as she placed the pot on the table. I think this is where I really wanted to be. I smiled, tying an apron around her waist. Well, then today, you're not the director. You're my sous chef. Sous chef, Evelyn teased. You might want to rethink your leadership style, Caroline. Laughter filled the kitchen and spilled into the living room. Josh turned on some soft jazz while Lily darted around making sure each fork was perfectly placed, reminding me every time I forgot the napkins should go on the left. We gathered around a small round table, too small for all the food, so a few dishes were stacked on the bookshelf. But no one cared. Walter told the story of how he met Ruby at the public library. Carla shared her project supporting single mothers and queens. Dina excitedly mentioned starting her first baking course. And me? I just sat there listening, smiling, and looking at my kids with a gratitude too big for words. As the meal wound down, Lily stood up, holding a folded piece of paper. She cleared her throat, serious like she was about to present in school. I have a speech, she said, and everyone chuckled. The first Thanksgiving speech, I whispered. Lily began to read, slowly but confidently. Last year, I ate Thanksgiving dinner in a laundry room. I didn't understand why we were placed there. But this year, I get it. Because if we hadn't been put there, we wouldn't have found the place we belong. Today, I know. I'm home. I covered my mouth, tears slipping out before I noticed. Evelyn gently placed her hand over mine and gave it a soft squeeze. Josh stood up after his sister, quietly adding, Mom, we're proud of you. Thank you for never stopping. I stood too, raising my glass of apple cider, my voice trembling. I used to think family was something unchangeable. Those who gave birth to us raised us. But now I understand. Family is the people who choose to love you freely every day. And today, I'm surrounded by the family I built with my own heart. We clinked glasses, not in unison, not perfectly, but with sincerity. After dinner, Lily pulled out an old board game, and Josh replayed the video of my conference speech. I didn't stop him. I'm not afraid of hearing myself anymore. The voice in that video belonged to a woman who once felt invisible, but who now knew she didn't need permission to matter. That night after everyone left, I sat in the kitchen holding a warm mug of tea, candles flickering low. A new message came in from my mother, just like every year. Cold, short. Hope you're doing okay. Happy Thanksgiving. I didn't respond right away. I looked around our little apartment, crumbs on the table, Lily's card still in the center, and laughter still echoing softly in my heart. I smiled. I was okay, more than okay, because I had found a family that didn't need to share my blood to be part of my soul. A week after Thanksgiving, I received an invitation from the National Women's Conference. They wanted me back as a guest of honor for the closing session, but this time not just to speak. They wanted me to join a round table with women who had heard my speech the year before and made powerful changes in their lives. I said yes without hesitation because I knew my presence wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about listening, sharing, and reaffirming one truth. Sometimes being pushed aside isn't the end. It's the beginning of something far more meaningful. This year's conference was held at a newly opened art center in Chicago. When I walked into the auditorium, I felt no fear or doubt. I wore a soft gray suit designed by Carla, my dearest friend from last year's summit. Pinned to my jacket was a small wooden table brooch, the symbol of the new project Evelyn and I had launched, Build Your Own Table, helping women build careers and confidence from the ground up. I sat among 6 women, each one a living story. One had been shut out by her family. Another had overcome abuse, unemployment, or loss, but all of them had one thing in common. They heard my story a year ago and asked themselves, if she did it, why not me? The first to speak was Marcy, a retired teacher. She said that after watching my video, she applied to volunteer at a skill center for single mothers. I used to think I had nothing left to offer, she said. But then I realized, worth isn't in titles. It's in making someone feel seen. Next was Shonda, a mother of 3 who had once been homeless. Now, she ran a small bakery near her kids' school. I watched the part where Caroline said, we don't need to ask for seats. Build your own table. And I started saving pennies and digging up my grandma's old recipes to carve out my own place. I listened to each voice, my heart filled with something raw and real. Faith, effort, and dignity rediscovered. When it was my turn, I didn't use my prepared notes. I stood, took a deep breath, and looked into the faces waiting for me. I used to be the one behind a closed door. I thought I had to be softer, smarter, less troublesome to earn a place at someone else's table. But the truth is, sometimes people don't reject you because you're lacking. They reject you because they don't know how to value you. And that says nothing about your worth. It only means it's time to build your own table. I saw Evelyn's eyes glisten from the audience. Josh sat in the 3rd row, taller than I remembered. Lily waved with tight lips, trying not to cry. I once sat in a garage and thought I was an extra piece, but that garage wasn't the end. It was the start. That was the place where I stopped asking to be seen and started choosing to believe I already mattered. The room was silent, not out of disinterest but because they were with me fully. These women weren't just an audience, they were proof of what I'd learned. When you stop waiting for an invitation, the world begins to open in ways you never imagined. The event ended with hugs, exchanged cards, and promises to keep building more tables together. That night, back in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and typed the first line of my second book. Not everyone needs a seat. Some of us are meant to have a stage. I looked up and saw myself in the mirror. Not the woman pushed into the laundry room, but the woman at the center, with a voice, a heart, and a life that no longer needs permission to begin. Caroline's journey is living proof that sometimes being pushed to the margins is exactly how we find our true worth. From a single mom cast aside by her own family, she rose to tell her story in her own voice and inspired thousands. Caroline no longer lives to be accepted. She lives to be herself, and in doing so, she found success, healing, and a chosen family built on genuine love. What do you think of Caroline's journey? Have you ever experienced a moment like hers? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about life and family.